Welcome to The Way Home with Laura Smith, the show that brings you wonderful guests, helpful advice, and uplifting stories. The Way Home. Live inspired. Here's your host, Laura Smith.
Well, I have two really wonderful guests today. My first guest is Dr. Brad Stuart. He has a book called Facing Death, Spirituality, Science, and Surrender at the End of Life. He practiced medicine for 50 years, and it included many of them in end-of-life care, palliative care, and creating programs, even for Medicare, on how to best take care of people from home. So that coming up. And the doctor of good news, I'm just going to give him a title right there. I usually call him the guru of good news. That would be Jim Clefield. He's got some nice, happy, uplifting stories to end the program today. It's all on the way home. We'll be right back with Dr. Brad Stuart. Don't go away.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
Well, I have been very interested in delving into the topics of aging with grace and even dying with grace, if indeed that is at the place where someone is at or someone's loved one. And I have met so many people in the last year that have expertise in this area and what it means. And I have a best friend who's a hospice nurse. And so I really hear a lot about how situations are handled at the end of life. And then I experienced my own father's passing just exactly 2 years ago. And so it opened up a world to me that I had not yet experienced. And so I'm very grateful to have someone here with so much experience in this and so much more. His name is Dr. Brad Stuart. He is an internist. He is a specialist in end-of-life care. He has 50 years of experience in so many different modalities, even spirituality in healing and so much more. He's also an author now, and he's written an incredible book called Facing Death, Spirituality, Science, and Surrender at the End of Life. Dr. Brad Stuart, thank you so much for joining us from the beautiful state of California today.
Well, thank you, Laura. It's great to be here.
I was very interested. I get sent a lot of books from various publicists all over the country, and yours popped out at me a lot for what I just talked about, the fact that experiencing my own dad's passing two years ago, and then also having a good friend in this line of work, but then also because you have not only so much medical experience and end-of-life care experience, but you come from a different angle and perspective with your experience, and that's of including spirituality in healing and different modalities for which people can, palliative care and how they can get through some of the most difficult medical conditions and situations, and that the fact that you were not afraid to pursue that at a young age, and you continue to do so. I'm so fascinated by your work, and your book is beautifully written. I've been enjoying it and all the various stories. So tell us, in terms of your book at the moment, what brought you to wanting to share this aspect of your whole career and how you integrated spirituality and healing and even the usage and understanding of some of the psychedelics that are used now that people are using in care and trauma?
Well, there's a lot of parts to your question, so let me unpack it a little bit.
Thank you.
I wanted to write the book when I was a medical student back in the mid-'70s, because I just was shocked at how we treated, or actually I felt mistreated people who were really ill and near death. And it was very hard for the university medical school that I attended. It was hard for everybody to admit when someone was dying. It was a research institution, and there were a lot of things that we did that I felt were more in the interests of the institution than the patient, and it really shocked me. I came into medicine wanting to learn how to really help, and this didn't seem very helpful. So, I went ahead and practiced internal medicine and did a lot of that same thing in the ICU myself for years until I finally felt I'd learned as much as I could learn about saving lives And I realized I was most fascinated by the people whose lives I couldn't save. What do you do then? And that doesn't get taught, especially back then. It didn't get taught. So I went into hospice and did that, for 30 years. And then I decided I would go ahead and write a book, mostly because I'm in the vanguard of the baby boom generation. We're the biggest population group in the history of the United States, the baby boomers, and we are just entering into the last phases of our lives. Who do you hear talking about that? Nobody. Nobody ever
It's
brings it
true.
up, and it's fascinating to me because with a lot of experience, you come to realize the end of life is a really important phase of life. But that's what it is. It's a phase of your life, and it deserves to be treated that way. So the book is just to talk about really my way of looking at healing, especially when you can't cure whatever's going on with the person. I think it's really important that we talk more and understand what healing is, because healing is available to everyone at any time, even when they can't be cured, and maybe especially when you can't cure their disease. You've got to look to healing, and that's what it's about. And I think that's important to talk about.
I absolutely am with you right there. I've been a student of Christian Science for 43 years, 42 years, something like that. And that is the term they use. They have a modality of treating people who are undergoing any type of, whether it's a physical illness, mental, or anything, and it's through metaphysical prayer. But they use the word healing. They don't use the word cure or fix or anything like that. And to me, that just lays on my heart a whole lot easier in terms of the way you are talking about it, when you're not actually curing somebody of something, but the healing can still take place. What do you mean by that?
Well, let's take Christian Science as an example of, a discipline, you could call it. I guess, I don't know. I wouldn't call it a religion, but it's an approach to trying to understand and deal with things that happen to us that we can't control. And so in Christian Science, I've dealt with a number of patients who are Christian Scientists, and it's a real challenge as a physician who practices medicine that employs drugs, surgery, and things like that. It's very challenging in Christian Science because Christian Science, as you say, approaches physical problems with a certain kind of prayer. And most Christian Scientists who have been my patients are really, really reluctant to submit to a lot of the treatments that doctors just don't give it a second thought. They just do it, or prescribe a drug, or send you to a surgeon. And so in Christian Science cases, what I've had to learn to do is put my biases and my training aside and sit with the person. And this is true of anybody, Christian Scientist or whatever, or no religion. Sit with the person, quiet down inside myself, and really listen and ask the right questions to really see who that person is and what they really, really need. And once you get deep enough into yourself and that person at the deepest level you can go together, healing is the direction that you take, and it becomes a very natural flow, like a river, in almost every case. Once you get to know that person on a deep enough level that you can feel what their deeper needs are, even deeper than their body recovering from the disease. We have deeper needs than, if you can believe this, to recover from illness. We have needs that are even deeper than that. And
Mm-hmm.
once you get in tune with those and go together in a direction that person will guide you in, and you got to give you got to give up your ego to do that. You're not in command like doctors are used to being. You're going there together, and that's a healing process. And it's automatically spiritual. No matter what your convictions or beliefs specifically are about God or no God, or honestly, those are just names. The process is what's important, and I think it really has to be done together. And that healing process doesn't just heal the person who's ill, it heals the person who thinks they're the healer. That's why it's so fascinating and so, I think, fulfilling. You do it together, and
Yes.
it's not like anything else I've ever participated in, other than family life and things where you do things together on a deep level and don't even think about it. This is an outside the family way of the same kind of love, I think, is what it comes down to.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that gives me chills to think about it because I give you so much credit, reading your book. You had a courage that I think was really outside of the box. For those times, I mean, back in the 70s and 80s and where people are really entrenched in medicine and physical medical science and such, and you came in with a willingness to perhaps use other modalities or think differently about it. The chapter about the children's asthma ward and how you introduced creative visualization to them, and it was actually helping them when they would have an asthma attack. They would go in and do what you taught them to do, but the professor that you were working with absolutely would have none of it. He did not care that that was helping those kids. He didn't want to hear about it. It wasn't orthodox. And so, how did you stay in the medical field for so many years, being that kind of a thinker and being that depth that you have in your approach to healing and helping people? How did you handle that, and how did you balance it? Did you feel like you had to kind of give up a lot of what your gifts were in order to fit into a paradigm, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. The answer is a little complex. I mean, on the one hand, yes, I had to bury some of my own convictions. I often couldn't say to my professors and other authorities, I couldn't say what I really thought. But that's true everywhere. I mean, you can't go to work and tell your boss what you think. That's not your place. There are times when you have to swallow your pride and look at the long road ahead and say, where do I really want to take this? And I really I don't know where it came from. That's another reason why I wanted to write the book. I wanted to explore, where does this urge come from to help and to love other people in a way that's healing for all of you. Where does that come from? I never saw myself as that kind of person. I did research. I was into science. I didn't see that was coming, but once it did, I decided that if I was going to learn to heal face-to-face individual patients, that the system needed healing as much or more than the individual people did. So I thought, man, if I say what's on my mind every day, I'm going to be a maverick and I'm going to be marginalized and I won't be able to do anything. So I just swallowed it, and I didn't take the party line. But I did finish my training, go into practice, but I practiced my way. You can't, you have to practice medicine within certain boundaries, or you're going to very quickly get into trouble, like malpractice level trouble. So you have to stay within the lines. At the same time, I found that you can treat people the way you choose. That's not as true anymore, unfortunately. Medicine's become a lot more regimented and by the book, but I did that for over 10 years. I was on call 24/7, going to the emergency room in the middle of the night. Some of those stories are in the book. But I had to learn. I felt, not only how do you get people better on all levels, I also wanted to learn, what is it about this system that is so I felt, out of line. And how could we help to line it back up again? And that's why eventually, after 10, 11 years of nonstop medical practice, I went into hospice, end of life care. I felt there was more to do there. And then I got involved nationally with hospice and published a lot of papers, invented a new way of taking care of people at home, wound up at a big, huge health system where I was able to kind of make that system work. And I wound up going and working with Medicare to get it paid for. And we actually did succeed in helping to change the system from the inside. And at that point, I retired. That was just a
God bless
took
you.
us up to
Wow.
a few years ago. But you don't have to be stubborn and egotistical about it. I think you do. I mean, a person who wants to help things change has to be stubborn enough to stick with it for a long time and be patient because change does not happen overnight, especially with something as complex and stubborn as our medical system is. It took a long, long time, and I think it was really worthwhile.
Mhm.
But the book isn't about that. The book is about what healing really could be, and also the fact that where I take it toward the end of the book is I don't think we know really who we are, and I don't think we know what's beyond the limits of the world that we can see and feel. There is something beyond that. And I think near-death experiences, which are now incredibly common because we're so good in ICUs at pulling people back from the other side, and a lot of them have stories to tell. They all tell the same story. There's something outside of what we know. And you can be religious, and you'll already believe that, or you can be a complete atheist and you still find that people have the same experience. So that's
Yes.
fascinating to me. We live inside a big mirror. All we can see is where we are. It's very tough to see through that mirror, but our job, I think, as healers and anyone who's really interested or really spiritual, we got to rub a little silver off the mirror and see if we can see through. Because I think when you die, you go beyond that mirror anyway. It's going to happen.
Hmm.
And so why not do a little homework ahead of time and see if we can get a little wise before the dying process does it for us.
Yes, and have more preparation for it, and be willing and have the courage to talk about it. I mean, you used the word love, which when you speak to a medical professional, that is not really the word that is, coming off their lips at any given moment. But you used it, and for the students of Christian Science, they say that love is the healer. So I want to know from your perspective and how you were able to incorporate that when you realized that that had so much to do with it, especially for people, who are at the end of their life and may not, have the ability to come back from that. But where does love fit into this, and how do you incorporate that whilst still being a medical professional? In what
That
way can you do that?
that's another fantastic question, Laura. It's like I'll tell you a quick story. Yeah. I have given, I can't tell you how many talks I've given all over the country and in other countries to roomfuls of doctors about this topic. I've given several hundred talks, and I finally got it to the point where, when you talk to a room full of doctors, say grand rounds in a hospital, they're all at lunch, they're all distracted, they all get called, they all like to talk to each other. They don't like to sit in their seats. They like to get up and mill around. I found that it's possible to learn how to stand up in front of a group of physicians and speak in such a way that after a few minutes, they all sit down, they all get quiet, they all look straight at you, they all have their eyes on you, and they're no longer distracted. And the way that you do that is you don't use these words, but you talk from a place of love. And once that room quiets down and the milling around stops and the concentration and the focus is there, then you can begin to talk about one thing, and that is, why did we go into this profession in the first place? Think back. What drew you? Is medicine a calling to you? Are you just here to make money and, pay off your boat? Is that what this is about for you? Or were you drawn into this because you really deep down cared about helping people who were suffering? And if you scratch deep enough in any doctor, you'll find that most of them, not all, but most of them came in because they wanted to learn how to use love to heal the suffering of people around them. That's their calling. Even if they didn't ever be, even if they weren't conscious of that at all, it's there. So the only story I want to tell is I went back to the hospital that I practiced at for years. And I was asked to come back a couple of times and do grand rounds, the lunch talk, So I gave my talk. And after the talk was over, a number of docs came up, and I knew them all. They were all my colleagues. A number of them came up to talk to me afterwards, and one of them waited until everybody else was done. And when they had all left, he came up to me, and he had tears streaming down his face. This guy was a vascular surgeon that I had crossed swords with my whole time in that hospital because he was really aggressive. It didn't take anything for him to operate on people. And in fact, I've talked several patients out of surgeries that he wanted to do, and he was angry at me for doing that. But I didn't think the patient would benefit from the surgery compared to what it might do to them if he operated. He came up with tears streaming down his face and said, thank you. I haven't thought about what you said for 30 years. And, he said, you woke me back up. And, that's where it is. I mean, it's buried down deep, and it's not just doctors. It's all human beings. That level of love drives us. It's where we came from. If you're religious, and you read the Christian Bible, it's all through the New Testament. I mean, Jesus talks about love everywhere, but you don't have to just go to Jesus. I mean, all spiritual disciplines and all religions have that kind of love down at the very base. That's the foundation that they are all built on. And it's what life on this planet is all about. And what's really ironic is if you read accounts of people who have died and have come back, have been brought back, they all say the same thing, that what they learn on the other side is that everything is made of love. We are built out of love. It's the building blocks that create the atoms and the molecules and hold them together that constitute what we think is reality. It's about love. And you see it over there so clearly that people will come back and say, man, that experience that I had was more real than my life and my body, and here's what I learned. And they all say that exact same thing. There's got to be more to it than just a coincidence.
Absolutely, there is. And I love so much that you, again, had the courage to, for as much as you could, bring it into your practice, bring it into your, into the consciousness of the people that you were treating, and they reaped the benefits of that. And there's no doubt about it. My guest is Dr. Brad Stuart. He has a book, wonderful book. It's called Facing Death, Spirituality, Science, and Surrender at the End of Life. But it's filled with, it gives you life, and it gives you a feeling of, it takes the fear out of a lot of what that is, I think, when you focus on those things. And you just seem like a natural at it. I mean, you taught yourself to meditate at a young age, going into your profession. And there were other techniques that you have used throughout that are probably seen as unorthodox. Yet again, there's that word, as compared to a lot of medical professionals. But they were all sort of based out of this desire to heal. What are some other things that you can kind of walk us through that you have utilized over the years that you've discovered that have worked and helped alleviate either the symptoms, the actual physical symptoms of some of your patients, or their emotional and spiritual experience while you're with them and treating them?
Well, you mentioned meditation. I'm not as much of a meditator as, people who I don't necessarily do it for hours every day, but I have learned how to meditate. And it wasn't until just the last few years that I kind of realized, just through the experience, what meditation is really about, what it's for. I could never, back when I was going through training and, when the phone would ring and I'd have to jump up from whatever I was doing, jump in the car and head to the hospital. I mean, when you're living that kind of life, meditation is a real luxury, and you may squeeze a few minutes in here and there, but you never know how long you're going to have. But even a few minutes can help you to experience who you really are. And what I mean by that is there's lots of specialty sort of approaches to meditation. The classic Buddhist meditation is Vipassana, which is pretty simple. You just sit down, close your eyes or not, and you just notice. All you do is notice what you hear, what comes up inside you, the thoughts that come across your mind. You notice them, and what you do is you become aware of things that you normally just don't think about or take particular notice of. You're just buried in the middle of them. When you notice them, your mind becomes the noticer. And after a while, you realize, or you make real, this fact that you are really the noticer. You are not all those thoughts. You are not what those thoughts are telling you are. And once you get that sort of distinction between the knower or the noticer that you actually are way down deep inside, and all the stuff that goes through your mind all the time that makes you think yourself is who you really are, yourself isn't who you really are. Yourself is just your accumulated learning of how to get by in the world and succeed and not hurt people and have satisfying relationships, all the stuff you need to learn to live in this world. That's not you. You just think it is. Mm-hmm. So meditation winds up being really useful because if you can sit back, close your eyes, notice the car is going by outside, the clock is ticking, the dog just shook her ears. You just notice those things, and then you kind of settle back. It's like a backwards motion inside to the place that's just doing the noticing, and you become aware of being aware. And that sounds really like woo-woo, but it's not, because once you're there, then you can look at yourself from that place and you realize, wait a second, this place where I really am actually empty, which, by the way, is what I've seen anyway. That's where people get to as they're dying. They let go of parts of themselves as they get closer and closer and closer. And if you stay with them all the way through, they get to that very silent place before they go through whatever the portal is. So it's like you're going to get there anyway, and dying will do it for you, or you can practice it sooner. And once you use that approach to meditation to be who you really are, and then look at yourself, you can begin to decide, well, what parts of myself are really working and what parts aren't. And most importantly, I can learn to appreciate myself or love myself. That same kind of love, you can do it with yourself as well as other people. but it doesn't mean you love everything you do, because some of the things I do are things that I think are big mistakes, and I still do them. That's the point. You're never perfect. That's not what your job is. Your job is to appreciate your own attempt to become the best person and self that you can. And you have to love that process. And meditation, it's a long-winded way of saying it, but meditation is one way of learning to step outside where it's quiet and look back and really appreciate yourself, because lack of appreciation and lack of self-respect is one of the biggest problems people have. It's very tough to walk around feeling bad about yourself. And this is kind of a way to help begin to heal that. And it's a huge relief once you begin to learn and work through that process of how to give yourself the same love that you can give to anyone else, or even the institution of medicine. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. The approach is that kind of love. And it's not complicated or woo-woo or crazy. It's real basic to being human, I think.
100%. The wise and also tried words of a doctor who has spent 50 years in the profession, and a lot of it in end-of-life care, as well as coming up with wonderful programs that have really changed the face of how people experience hospice and palliative care and so much. His name is Dr. Brad Stuart. The book is Facing Death: Spirituality, Science, and Surrender at the End of Life. But there's so much more to pack into it. I feel like I need to have you back again and again, because I feel like we're only scratching the surface of such incredible work that you've done and what you've learned along the way that all of us can get something from. The book is beautifully written as well, and each chapter has a wonderful nugget in it that a lot of them from your own experiences that you learned from, and the lessons right there with them. Dr. Brad Stuart, thank you for being with us today on the way home. Where can people, I know you have a website just based on your name, correct?
I do. It's just Brad Stuart, MD, BradStuart, MD.com. And it's a very simple, it's nothing fancy. It's just a little bit about me and a little bit about the book. And, feel free to go there, see what you think. And it's really been a pleasure, Laura. Thanks so much for having me on, and great questions.
Well, extraordinary work and an extraordinary book, and your life as well. Thank you. We will have you back for sure. Dr. Brad Stuart, everyone, and Facing Death is the book.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
Well, something that I've always had in the back of my mind since I was a little kid is I wanted to invent toys or games or something like that. Never got around to it, however, doing radio for 30 years. But my mom did. When she turned about 81, she made up a game, and we play it every year we're together. So I have somebody on that you're going to want to know about. He's fabulous, fantastic, and interesting. Bob Moog is the founder of University Games, which is the largest independent board game company in the United States, and he is a character. Bob, thank you for joining us on the way home.
Well, I'm glad to join you, and a happy holidays to everyone. I feel like I'm from Missouri originally, and being in your part of the world is actually exciting to me. I feel like I'm kind of back with my people.
Oh, I love that. So again, I'm sure you get 10 people a day coming up to you and saying, oh man, I always wanted to be a game inventor or a toy inventor or something. But you're the one that actually did it, and not just a couple. I mean, a lot. So tell us a little bit about your background. I find it fascinating.
Well, I got out of college and graduate school and just had in me this idea that I wanted to have my own company. And it was in the 1980s. And I looked at different options, and my friend and I narrowed it down to three things. One was the Dove Bar had just been invented. And so we thought maybe we would do confection ice cream. And then the second was the laws on beer brewing had changed, and in 1982 the law changed so you could actually have a microbrewery on premise. And we thought, well, that'd be fun to own our own bar and brew our own beer. And then the third thing was Trivial Pursuit was my favorite game. And I said, I think I can invent games like this, and there aren't any others for young adults. And I'm in my 20s, and so I want to give it a try. I'd always loved games, kind of like you.
Mm-hmm.
And turned out that it's really expensive to start an ice cream business because you have to have refrigerated trucks and all this stuff. And I was concerned that if I had a brewery, I might do more drinking than selling. So we decided not to do that. And that left us with games. And so without any experience in games, without ever having run a business before, when I was 28 years old, I took my life savings, which was $10,000, and my friend took his. And we started University Games with the idea of doing social interactive games for young adults and for families.
Why University Games?
Our idea was that we would sell specifically to college bookstores. Nobody wanted to buy games in college back then because the only time they really wanted to buy games was gifts for Christmas, and they didn't want to lug them all the way home. They just bought them when they got home. So the business did okay, but after 3 or 4 years, we realized that we needed to be broader than just university bookstores.
What was it that you started with? What was the game that sort of broke you into the industry and made you known?
Well, we had 3 kind of turning points in our history. The first was our first game, Murder Mystery Party. We invented the concept of inviting people to your house to solve a murder, in an evening and dressing up in costumes. That was our first product. And that really launched us. That got us a lot of distribution, and we sold tens of thousands even in the first year. Then we went on for a couple of years, adding games and expanding the Murder Mystery Party line. And the next big pivotal moment was we got a license to do a glow-in-the-dark Batman game when the Michael Keaton Batman movie came out in 1989. And when that happened, that got us into Target and Walmart and got us to be more of a national company. And then the third thing that happened that was really exciting was in 1994, we bought a company that made glow-in-the-dark stars, the stars that you can stick in a bedroom. And we became the world's largest importer and seller of glow-in-the-dark stars. And we still are number one in the United States. And it took us to a whole new level. We sold millions of bags of those little stars. And those were kind of our 3 turning points.
Wow. And you know what? They're ubiquitous. I mean, with the murder mystery thing, I actually finally got to do it when I moved here to the Midwest from New York. The first year, that was in 2020 or 2021, we had one, and it was a blast. Loved it, had the best dinner, and that's how I met everybody here, was that murder mystery game. Oh, and then the stars, I think we all bought them for our kids at some point because they all wanted them on their ceilings. And so that's exciting. Bob Moog is the founder of University Games, the largest independent board game company in the U.S. Now, you've got some new games. I just want to ask you real quick, were you part of that the trivia in bars type of game that everybody is familiar with? They have in Indiana, they have in New York.
Yeah. So we developed a line of games called Pub Trivia that is the first team trivia games that have been ever introduced. And we sell them all over the country, and they are based on the concept of bar trivia. And that's a lot of what we do. We say, what's the trend? The trend is bar trivia. It's being done in 5,000 bars a week. Let's do a game on that so people can have the experience at home if they want to. And so Ultimate Pub Trivia is the name of the product, and it's great, and it's a great team game. And then we have this other game called Am I the Ass? And that game is a great game too, but it's based on a trend on Reddit and Facebook, where people are posting situations where they've behaved a certain way, and they're asking the world,
yes,
was I
Am I the ass? Yeah, they even have like abbreviation letters for it. Yeah.
And so we saw that trend, and we said, maybe we can do a board game version of that so people can play it with each other versus just a single person on a computer. And I I'd love to read you one of these so you can get a sense of how it all works. Do we have time?
Absolutely. You have the smart ass game, and then you have Am I the Ass? And
Right.
so you tell me which one you want to start with.
Well, Smartass came out with first, and the reason we called it Smartass was a play on words. The picture on the front of the box is a donkey, and in some parts of the country, donkeys are called asses. And then the play is also, when you play a game, one of the things people get frustrated about with Trivial Pursuit is that one of the people knows all the answers, the other people don't, and that person comes across kind of like a smartass. So in this game, everyone listening right now, all over the country, are going to know the answers to these. The game is who can get there first. So the way the game plays is I have a well-known person, place, or thing, and if it's a person, it could be living or dead, real or fictional, male or female. And I read 8 clues about the person. But going in, you've definitely heard of this person. And so the question is, how fast can I guess the person's name? So
who's first?
Who's first? So I'm going to read you the clues, and they start from pretty obscure to get to very obvious. And let's see when you can yell out who it is. So this is a person. Who am I? I'm an American actor born in Concord, California. I wear a wig and a dress on the TV show Bosom Buddies. I married
Tom Hanks.
Yes, Tom Hanks. You got it in 2. That's really good. So you would then get to roll the dice and move forward on the board.
Oh, my goodness. Now, that's the smart ass game. Am I the ass? Is the format different?
Yes. So Am I the ass is situations where it's written in the first person. And what we did is we polled 500 people all through the country, all different economic levels, all different genders and ages and everything. And we took the data, and what you're trying to do in this game, kind of like Family Feud, is say what percent of the people you think would agree that I am the ass. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you ready?
Yes.
Am I the ass for grabbing the last bottle of diarrhea medicine from another shopper? I was having bad diarrhea, so I drove to the store. As I was parking near the front door, an old lady honked, stole my parking space, and flipped me off. I had to park far away and almost crawl back. I beelined down the aisle and saw the same lady struggling to reach the last bottle of medicine on the top shelf. Without hesitation, I quickly grabbed it and left. So am I the ass? What percent of the people do you think would have said that? Closer to 25, 50, 75, or 100?
50.
50 is right. And what do you think about that? Do you think I am the ass? What do you think? You think you were right about the 50%?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I do too. So typically this is one that really splits by age. Younger people say, no, you weren't the ass. She cut you off. There's one bottle left. You don't know her. Take it. People who are older say, no, there's a thing called respect for old ladies. And she's an old lady, and you know, she was there first and she should get it. So you get
they're moral dilemmas. Is that
moral
what
dilemmas?
Am I the ass is more like moral dilemma? I love reading that on Reddit, you know, when somebody, or they'll have them on other news outlets and platforms too. But it's like, you know, my wedding was canceled and it was too late to get the money back. And now I feel like I need to give the gifts back too, but I really want them or whatever, you know, and then everybody weighs in on it.
Right.
And then it comes up with like a percentage of the people that are agreeing with it or not. But it's fun to read because you see how people think and how they operate and how different we all are. Bob Moog, this is fun. These are the games, I mean, just 2 of how many do you have now in your cadre?
We have about 20 party games, which is what Smartass and Am I the Ass and Ultimate Pub Trivia are. But overall, we have over 85 games that are active right now.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, that sounds like a fun way to make a living and a life. You've brought joy to so many people and continue to do so. And I don't know, maybe I should get my mother, who is now 87, to teach you about her game.
I'd like to hear about her game.
Every Christmas.
I'd love to hear that.
It's wonderful to know. Give us a website where we can find all of your games.
The best website to go to is arugame.com, AREYOU GAME.com. They'll be shipping all the way through Christmas, and I think they can through the 15th or the 20th. They'll be able to still get it to you for Christmas if you order all the way through the 20th.
Wow, that's fabulous. RUGame.com. Bob Moog is my guest, the founder of University Games, the largest independent board game company in the United States. And congratulations on all your success. But thank you on behalf of the world that just needs a little more time to play and be together and have fun. Thank you so much for being on the way home.
Thank you so much, too. And I wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year.
The same to you, Bob Moog.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
Well, I changed your title from Guru of Good News to the Doctor of Good News. So, Doctor, what do you have for us today? Give us something good.
Well, I certainly will. I'll start on Portland, Oregon, LJ, and perhaps you all saw this story. You don't have to be a hockey fan to appreciate this, but it's really timely for the holiday season. Something magical happened at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. There's a minor league hockey team named the Portland Winterhawks. They played the Vancouver Giants in a recent hockey game, and something really special happened. It's become a real tradition. This has been going on for 25 years, LJ. Each year at this time, when the home team scores the first goal, all the fans just start to throw teddy bears and stuffed animals on the ice. This is called the teddy bear toss, and this has been going on since 1999. Now, usually, if you're a hockey fan, when a player scores a hat trick, they throw hats on the ice. That's a normal thing. But this is really unusual, LJ, because this sellout crowd did it. And there was about 17,000 of these teddy bears and stuffed animals were thrown on the ice, not just to celebrate the goal, not just to celebrate the holiday season, but, LJ, this is really about a celebration of hope for young kids and their families who may not be of means, that may not be able to have a pet like a dog or a cat, for example. They can have a stuffed animal to really give them the spirit and the feeling of happiness during this holiday season. And this has been going on a long time. So needless to say, it was a very big mess for the people to clean up on the ice. But they took all these stuffed animals, these toys, and gave it to local charities and are able to give it to these kids and these families to not only make their holiday season brighter, but, as I said, to give them more hope and really a little companionship. And this is just a wonderful thing. The teddy bear toss. I just love that.
Oh, I love that, too. I still have some of my original teddy bears and dolls from when I was a kid. And, I'm not too old or embarrassed to say that I like to sleep with them once in a while.
I used to.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, used to. For you. I still do. On to the next story.
Well, from the West Coast to the East Coast, LJ, from stuffed animals to live animals, we go to this next story at Chesapeake, Virginia. This wonderful couple, Andrew and Jennifer Dewey, they are devoted people helping to shelter animals. They've been doing this now for a year with the local animal shelter in Chesapeake, and they're also devoted pet parents. They recently had a terrible loss, LJ. They had a dog, a beloved dog, who passed away, and Jennifer said, we're still in the coping phase right now. We're trying to just process all of this. Well, here's the thing. They have been volunteering at these animal services shelter in Chesapeake for about a year now, and they just love what they do. It's not for money. And in this particular shelter, there are 40 animals, all dogs, and something special really is happening with Jennifer. She's turning the big 4-0, LJ. And you know what her husband, Andrew, decided to do? He met with one of the head volunteers at the shelter and he decided, hey, what if I pay for the adoption fees of each and every one of these shelter animals? That's $4,000 that he's paying. That comes out to about, $100 per animal? And the reason they did it, because it's just a way of celebrating her birthday. And Jennifer says, when we're around these animals, and they are great therapy, she said, this is even better than marriage therapy. And as somebody who deals with animals on a regular basis, LJ, what do I say? Animals, dogs, they're the best therapy in the world. These certainly are. And they hope that by adopting, doing this kind of thing, they hope it'll inspire others not only to adopt animals like these or shelter them, they hope they can adopt them and make them one of their own and be part of the family. Because let's face it, LJ, pets are not just pets for pets' sake. They are truly family.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. And, I'm so grateful that people do really shine a spotlight on the shelter animals. And it's not to say that store-bought animals or, animals from breeders are not just as important. But But the fact is, our shelters are overrun. They are often, just going on volunteers in the community. And these animals are so wonderful, and they need homes. So every time somebody does something to shine a light on them or pay the adoption fee or waive it, something like that, they are really making a difference. And it just, in every community in the United States, I'm so grateful that we do have a country that believes in taking care of animals. We take it super seriously, and we try to find homes for all of them. Back in the day, I don't know, Jimmy, if you remember this, but back in the day, if animals were at a shelter for any length of time and not adopted, they would be euthanized.
Yeah, and that breaks my heart to even just hear that.
I know. And there has been a huge change of thought and a change of actions. Many, many places do not euthanize anymore, but all the more reason why, we really need to shine a light on those, because they get overcrowded at times. They basically run out of room, and they need to put these animals somewhere, because even though they do not euthanize them, keeping them alive and feeding them all the time, and also keeping them happy, because they can be very stressed out living in a shelter. So thank you for that. Love your stories. And now that we have upgraded you from guru to doctor of good news, don't be expecting a pay raise.
I was going to say maybe like a degree of some kind I can hang up on the wall.
Yes, I'll buy you a certificate.
Doctor of Goodness. I better remember that now. Okay.
What did you say, Bob?
We'll work on that. We're going to get him some sort of certificate.
Yes, the certificate. We'll get a gold frame. It'll look very official.
GGNN? Doctor,
yeah.
No, GGGN. No, I don't know. Doctor
of
Good News. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Good news. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me today and every day, and all of us. Bob Small, my producer, Jim Clefield, the Doctor of Good News. And we'll do it all again next week. This is a show called The Way Home, because we hope it brings you some sense of comfort, peace, and like you've arrived. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Stay safe, and God bless. I'm Laura Smith.
Podcasts by Federated Media.